Given the current global circumstances, and I think you know which ones I mean, we're all co-editing documents electronically more than ever. But there are better and worse ways to do that. Today I'm going to show you some worst practices, along with an alternative you may want to consider. Hi, I'm Deborah Savager with LegalOfficeGuru.com, and today we're going to be talking about Microsoft Word's Track Changes feature, specifically how not to use it. You'd think that any feature that just requires you turn it on and start typing would be a no-brainer, but nope, not the case. I'm going to show you 3 ways I've seen track changes completely misused. Then I'll review a document collaboration tool by this video's sponsor, Simul, that may make the whole editing a document with other people thing a whole lot easier. Let's start with our first worst practice. I hope you're lucky enough to not have gotten a document that looks like this. Oh, this looks like track changes, but when you go into the Review tab and try to accept the changes, there aren't any. Because what this person has done is actually directly formatted the text. They've turned their insertions red, they've manually struck through their deletions, and they've inserted comments directly in the text and reformatted those as well. This is a complete nightmare to try to finalize whenever it comes time to finalize this document. It's very, very error prone. And not only does this make matters incredibly difficult for the person who's trying to finalize the document, this actually makes more work for the person who did the document in the first place. I mean, why would you not just turn track changes on and then just start typing? And some people say, well, you got to go to the Review tab and then you got to do this and then you got to track and do this. No, you don't actually have to do any of that. What you can do is go down to the status bar, and you only have to do this once. Right-click and make sure that Track Changes actually has a check mark next to it. And then forever after, all you have to do to turn Track Changes on is click on it. That's it. And then you just start typing. I guess the one pro that this particular method has is this is something that this person is actually comfortable with. This is something they know how to do. But this is one of those situations in which you do you is not really good advice. Related to the last method is the I used track changes but I inserted my comments in the text method. Now this has some improvement over the last method in that, hey, they actually turned track changes on, but they didn't insert their comments in the way that Word really prefers that you do. They just inserted them directly in the comments. Again, this is comfortable for some people, but it makes more work for other people, and it makes more work really for the other person, or the person actually editing the document. So instead of using the comment feature the way it's intended, which is very simple, all you do is just click New Comment, and then you have a comment here. Now, another pro here is that you don't have to figure out how to display the comments. Now in here, this actually put this in the reviewing pane. You can also display them in a balloon over to the right. So I guess there's a pro there where you don't have to really deal with how to show or hide the comments. Now this has some of the same problems as the full direct formatting method that I've outlined previously. It's more time consuming for someone to edit, and it's more prone to errors when you're finalizing the document. And the difference between a comment and the rest of the text isn't always entirely clear depending on how they formatted it. And you also can't take advantage of the Remove All Comments feature, which once you're done finalizing the document, this makes it very easy just to remove all of the comments. Now, this is admittedly a very simple example of a document with track changes, and this is pretty easy for someone to read. But I can totally understand that when a document gets to be very long and very complex with a lot of changes, that a lot of people are tempted to simply accept all the changes and then create a clean version of the document so that they can read the document as if all the changes were accepted. The problem is, this is completely unnecessary. You can actually change the way that the document is displayed and printed just by changing the way the markup is shown, and you don't have to accept any of the changes. You don't have to destroy your track changes or save it to a whole new document, which makes for a lot of confusion for people. All you have to do is go up here on the Review tab and click this drop down. Now, by default, Word will usually display this as simple markup, and I'm in Word 2019. These options have changed slightly throughout several of the versions. You may see something slightly different if you're an earlier version, but the principle is still the same. Simple markup will just show you a line over here that's saying something in this document has changed, but it doesn't actually show you the change itself. I tend to prefer showing all markup, and that way I can actually see the change that's there. But here's the one I want you to pay attention to. The one that says no markup. And in other versions it may say something a little bit different. That shows you the document as if all of the changes have been accepted. So you don't have to go in and accept all of the changes, then save it as a quote-unquote clean document in order to see what the document would look like if all the changes had been accepted. And then there's another choice that shows you how the document was originally. So if you wanted to see that. So just use this drop down here and stop saving a clean copy. It's totally unnecessary. So you've seen how even a feature as relatively straightforward as track changes can trip people up. But how else are you going to track other people's changes to your documents, particularly if you've got several people to get input from? Sure, you could force the issue by turning on track changes and locking it with a password before you email it to everyone, but even that presents several challenges. Once everyone gets their own individual copy as an email attachment, they're all editing independently and not seeing everyone else's changes. And then, after they all email you their individual changes, you've got to reconcile them into one big master document. Even if you use Word's combined feature, you can only combine 2 Word documents at a time, which means you'll have to do that multiple times, depending on how many reviewers you had. You may be thinking, I can get around that by using Google Docs or Dropbox or my Microsoft SharePoint server. Not so fast. Google Docs is great for a lot of things, but it's mostly an online whiteboard. Unless your collaborators know what they're doing, it can be tough to track who changed what. And even with Dropbox and SharePoint, you still have limits on how many people can edit the document at a time, with a really high potential for version conflicts. And with SharePoint, that assumes everyone you're working with is on Office 365. Here's where Simul comes in. Now, full disclosure, the folks at Simul approached me recently and offered to sponsor this review of their document collaboration tool because they know I speak to the legal technology market. After Aaron with Simul walked me through the tool via a Zoom call, I was excited to try it out for myself. But to ensure Simul's sponsorship of this review didn't unduly sway my opinion, I recruited several Legal Office Guru readers to help test the application. And boy did they test it. Let's talk first about what Simul is. Simul itself as version control for Microsoft Word. It's a cloud solution that allows multiple editors to collaborate on a single Word document. Simul is free to use for one document. Once you upload a second document into your repository, you must upgrade to a paid plan, at this writing starting at $15 a month. An enterprise version you can host on your own server is available as well. Let's get into Simul and have a look around. First, I wanted to get comfortable with the interface myself before inviting any other testers. I created a completely blank document within Simul, then proceeded to click Open in Word over on the right. Simul confirms that that's what I want to do. Now immediately I run into a bit of a snag, admittedly a good one. Microsoft Office is trying to protect me from malicious files I may be downloading from the internet, so it's popped up this warning message. I know this file is safe, so I click Open Trust Center to adjust the security settings slightly to allow me to open this document. This is something I'll only have to do once, not every time I open a document from Simul. Once I'm in Trust Center, I change the sign-in prompt to ask me what to do for each host, rather than blocking all downloaded files outright. Then I click OK to save the new security setting. When I try opening the document from Simul again, this time the prompt's different. Notice that Word is telling me where this document is coming from, so that I can confirm that yes, I do want to download and edit this document. Now Word is opening the document in Protected View. This is similar to what you probably see whenever you open a Word document attached to an email. That long yellow bar at the top indicates that the document is open in Protected View. If I want to edit this document, I have to click Enable Editing to do so. Once I click Enable Editing, Word reopens the document in an editable mode. Once I had the document opened, I noticed that the Save button looked a little like it does when I'm editing a document from my OneDrive account, except autosave was turned off. When I hovered over it, this description told me that not only will this button save the document, it'll refresh it with any updates from other contributors who are editing the document simultaneously. Even though I didn't have track changes turned on in Word, Simul did that for me. After I saved my changes, my new version was saved in Simul as version 0.0.2. Now that I had a basic understanding of how Simul works, I started a new document with a bit more formatting and invited fellow contributors to it. This is a document that I actually had in my SharePoint server, and I uploaded it into Simul. Inviting others to contribute to or view your document in Simul is easy. Just click the three dots underneath your username in the top right-hand corner and click Add Edit Members. Then click the Invite a New Member button over on the left. You'll notice that there are three levels of users. Owners, of which I automatically am one because I created the document, contributors who can edit the document, and viewers who can only see published versions of the document. By the way, all these testers you see in the Viewers section now were contributors originally while we were testing this product. I demoted them to viewers once testing was complete, so you can move members from one group to another easily. All you have to do is click the three dots next to the member's name and change their permissions accordingly. Once someone's invited to your document, they'll get an email with a link to your document. When they click that link, they're invited to register. What's nice about Simul here is that your co-editors don't have to already be registered for a Simul account before you invite them to participate. And you can have unlimited members for your document completely free to you and to them. This is what the Simul interface looks like when you first log in. Any documents you're working on are shown as tiles. Just click the tile to start editing or reviewing your document. I've re-logged in as a contributor rather than as a document owner. I sent myself an invitation to my Gmail account to demonstrate what your members will see when they start editing your document. Because I've already gone through the process of adjusting the security settings in Trust Center, all I have to do now is click Enable Editing to start editing the document. As a contributor, I've added a second paragraph to the document with track changes turned off. So I'm just editing the document as I normally would any other time. But when I save the document as a contributor and go back into Simul, my changes have been redlined by the comparison engine in Simul as if I'd had track changes turned on. Notice how up at the top, Simul counts the number of insertions and deletions I made. That deletion must have been an extra hard return or something because I don't see anything struck out. It was at this point that I invited several Legal Office Guru readers to help me test Simul further. I wanted to give it a good real-world workout to see how the experience was for them and whether they inadvertently tripped over anything or found any task difficult. A few things cropped up. All right, let's get into Simul and see what some of our testers did. This is version 1, and I've selected it by clicking over here over on the left. And then our first tester who made some changes. Actually, she told me that she had applied a .dot template to try to bring in some styles. Now, I will point out that Simul is designed to notate text changes, not formatting changes. So that may have been something that wouldn't have shown up for her, and in fact she did notice that did not show up for her. But I also, just to keep track of that, named this particular revision as applied.dot template for styles. And the way that I did that was to click over here on name this version. And then, while tester Miss Molly had the document open, another tester came in, tester XYZ, and opened version 1 as well. So they both had version 1 simultaneously open. And notice that what's being shown in this preview window is the changes made between that current version and whatever version they opened. So now we have two people opening version 1 and saving their changes. And then again, tester Anonymous opened version 1 as well. So that created a branch over here where we had some branching off to different edits actually there. And what I did at version 5 was to merge them. And in comparing these three edits with the merged version, it turns out Simul did a pretty good job of actually accounting for all of those revisions. Again, they're always going to be only text revisions, not formatting revisions. But Simul actually did a pretty respectable job. If I wanted to be able to compare version 5 with version 1, see if I remember this right. Yes, I can right-click, I can click on one version and right-click on another and say compare versions. And it will actually show me the differences between those two. And then in version 9, we had someone who added a comment, and that's another feature in Simul, is you can actually put comments within the tool, as opposed to doing a comment within the Word document. Whichever way that you want to do that, you can actually record those conversations within Simul. And again, we had another branching situation where we had a version 10, and then the same tester managed to open that document and save two different versions of it. And again, I merged it. So as you can see, this graphic really does describe the process very well in terms of who's done what, and you can see each version compared to the previous version. So this preview I'm seeing here is a comparison of version 10 to version 9, and then that's a comparison of version 9 to version 8, etc. So this is actually a very good tracking tool, particularly when you have multiple editors. And it always shows you when those changes were done and what sorts of changes were done. Now, we did have one interesting little glitch. Once I had actually created the merged document at version 5, tester XYZ came in and created a version 6. Now, look at what happens to the preview on the screen. Obviously, some change was made, but the document looks to be completely blank. But when I downloaded the document, and I can actually download any particular version and examine it in Word, the document looked fine. Well, the folks at Simul were kind enough to take a look at this situation and kind of explain to me what was going on. What the person had done was actually, tester XYZ had actually deleted the last hard return, which had created page 2. And since Simul only shows you the pages with changes, then the now empty page 2 was actually what was showing. So I wouldn't say it was a glitch. I mean, it's actually working the way that it was designed, but it did sort of throw me for a loop a little bit. So thanks to the folks at Simul for sort of explaining to me what actually happened there. So that's my, or should I say my and my collaborators' review of Simul. What do you think? Is this something that would help you with group editing? Would your co-authors be willing and able to use a tool like this? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, would you like to see more product reviews like this? Leave me a comment with any suggestions for future reviews you'd like to see. This has been Deborah with Legal Office Guru. Thanks for watching.